Welcome back to the Kaitlin Brown Show. If you're new here, thank you so much for being here. And thank you guys for believing in the vision and what we're actually building here. Every Thursday we come together. We're going over current events, leadership, unity, just everything in between. But we're giving truth, not outrage, because there's enough of that online. You guys can find that anywhere else. Here, we're just giving truth. We're giving facts. And we're not giving all the drama and everything in between. So if that's what you're looking for, welcome to the Kaitlin Brown Show. Listen, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or someone who's just trying to make sense of the world, I hope you feel welcomed here. We don't have to agree on everything, but we should be able to reason together. And that's my commitment to you. And before we jump into today's episode, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and click the like and subscribe button to make sure you guys do not miss a beat. So first and foremost, like I said, this show is not built on outrage. There's enough places online where you guys can find that, but you will not find it here. We don't need more problems. We need more solutions. We don't need more outrage. We need more peace. And we definitely don't need more lies. We need the truth. What we are building here is a place for clarity. It's a place for wisdom and a space where we pursue the truth with conviction while still treating people with dignity. Because I believe character builds strong families, strong leaders, and strong nations. So let's talk about this week. This week is a very important week, and one particular story this week has been weighing on me more than any other. And that's the pretrial that began on Monday involving Tyler Robinson, who is accused of murdering Charlie Kirk on September 10, 2025 at UVU. Now, before we talk politics, I want to get into something deeper. I kept thinking about Charlie's parents. I saw the video of them arriving inside of the courtroom, and I'm a parent myself. I can't even imagine what that feels like, that pressure, that reliving of the moment that your son was taken from you. Like, I can't even imagine the way that his parents are feeling. And if you're not a parent, just for 1 second, put yourselves in their shoes and imagine being a parent. Imagine that no legal outcome could ever bring your son back. And now, after 9 months, you have to sit in a courtroom, face the person who is accused of killing your son, and relive everything. Watch how all the evidence unfolds and praying to God that the truth be revealed about what happened to Charlie Kirk that day. Sometimes we watch stories through a political lens before we stop to remember that real people are hurting. Regardless of anyone's political views, there is something every decent person should be able to agree on. And that is that violence can never become an acceptable response to disagreement. We need to learn how to disagree again. This nation needs to learn how to disagree without discounting the fact that somebody else is still a human being, that we all have different cultures, religions, backgrounds, and experiences, and we are not all the same. So that means we're not all going to think the same. But responding with violence is something we can never, ever do again. One of the most dangerous things that can happen in any society is when we stop seeing people as human beings and start seeing them as only labels. Liberal, conservative, Christian, progressive, illegal immigrant, billionaire, socialist, MAGA, Democrat. I mean, there's so many. The list can go on and on. The right, the left, the libs, the this, the that. It's insane the way that we speak with such divisive language. And once we reduce somebody to a label, it's much easier to forget that they're somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's parent, somebody's friend. And history shows us over and over again that the darkest moments rarely began with violence. They began when people convinced themselves that another group no longer deserved dignity. Like, imagine getting to a point where you no longer see somebody as a human being, but rather a label, or that they don't deserve to live just because of what it is that they believe or what it is that they speak. It's pretty sad. Like, I think about it, and I know it's been 9 months since Charlie's gone, but I'm like, wow, like, I could only imagine the way that my grandmother felt when JFK was assassinated. That is our modern day experience that we have here with Charlie Kirk. And that's why I truly believe that we need to guard our hearts. We can strongly disagree with someone and still recognize their humanity. We can debate ideas without destroying people. In fact, I think that's what mature leadership looks like. Wouldn't you agree? You know, the other day I was book signing and this guy came up to me. If you guys don't know, I recently came out with a book for the 250th anniversary. I was looking around for it. I don't have it next to me. It's over there. But for the 250th anniversary of our nation. And I was doing a book signing and this gentleman came up to me. He was like maybe the second or third person that came up to me. And he just wanted to know what the book was about. And I'm over here telling him, you know, the book's about, you know, going over these last 250 years and every single pivotal point in our nation's history and everything we've had to overcome. And we're here and so many people have sacrificed their lives so that we can live in freedom. And now we're living in this divided nation. And so the title of my book is 250 Years, One Nation Under God, United, Not Divided, because I truly believe that the future of this nation will become more united. And I know we're at a breaking point. I know we're at a point where a lot of people have lost hope, but I am continuing the good fight. I continue to have hope and faith in our nation because I know where we came from and I serve a good God. And I know that as long as we have breath in our lungs, there is hope. And so this individual came up to me and, you know, he started expressing the way that he feels about the division in this country. And he started expressing his political views. And I automatically saw that there was definitely disalignment in what he believed and what I believed. But I sat and I listened. He spoke for about 20 minutes on what is it that he believed. And he saw that I just sat there and I listened to him. He did not once ask me what it is that I believed. But once he was done, he asked me a simple question. He said, "What do you think about that?" And then I said, "Well, you know what? I understand why you have that perspective. And although I don't agree with it, I can see why." And he went into his background and how he was raised and his family history. So I could see how he could potentially believe the ideology or the ideas that he stands on. And I told him, I said, "Listen, I think it's amazing that you can express the way you feel. And I can express, you know, my opinions and my views. And, you know, we're not going at each other's throats." And he kind of laughed it off and he agreed. You know, he was like, "Yeah, you're right. Like, it feels good that I can express the way that I feel." And he was like, "I could obviously see that you believe in other things." And he's like, "You know, I can actually kind of see your perspective." You know, because I sat and I listened to him and I leaned into the fact like, yeah, I don't agree with you, but I'm not going to go fight you. Like, I'm going to listen to you. And then he listened to what it is that I had to say. And then, you know, ultimately we kind of just like shook hands and he walked away. And then 5 minutes later, he comes back and he says, "You know what? I want to buy your book. Like, I really want to know more about your perspective. I really want to know about our nation's history. And I really want to appreciate it." And, you know, I told him, I said, "Listen, my book is not about left or right. And there's no, you know, political angle here. The book is really about education and also standing on the point that we need to live more united. And it's a call to the American people to be better, right? How can we be better? How can we disagree and still be better?" And so that's the angle of the book. And he bought the book, he had me sign it, and he took a photo with me. And you know what's even crazier? After that day was over, I want to say 6 or 7 hours later, I signed a bunch of books and took a bunch of photos. I get a DM, actually a comment on one of my posts, and it was him saying, "I just purchased your book. I started reading it, and I'm so grateful. I'm so glad that I did." And he told me that. And for me, that was just something that was so special because I realized how easy it is to just sit, listen, and agree to disagree without killing one another. And now he is learning from a perspective that I shared, and he's actually reading a book. Had I not sat down with him and listened to him for 20 minutes, that would have never occurred. When I think of a moment like that, I think of Jesus, because one of the things that Jesus modeled so beautifully was the ability to speak truth boldly while never forgetting the value of the individual standing in front of him. Now that's difficult. Actually, this day and age, it's almost impossible. When we scroll through social media, we see anything but that. But I believe it's what we're called to pursue. Now, I am Christian, I am a believer, but I do not weaponize my faith and I do not force people into my faith. I understand that people believe in different things, and if you're watching the show and you believe in something different, you are welcome here. The invitation will always be open, the door will always be open, but my faith is just part of the identity of who I am. So I will be speaking about it throughout my conversations because it's the foundation in which I built my life on. Okay, so I just want to put that out there so that you guys are aware. But I do believe that this is what we're called to pursue. And I know people will get angry at me in the comments section for saying that, and that's okay. I have zero hate towards anyone that disagrees with me because everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And I understand that we're all different and that we come from different cultures, religions, and experiences. And that is the very thing that makes America so beautiful. Is that we're not all the same, and if we were, that would be boring. I would never force my ideas onto anyone or my belief in Jesus Christ, but I will always speak on it for those who choose to listen. You see, when people watch or listen to your content, they have a choice to scroll past or to stop and listen. So my invitation will always be open, and anyone who disagrees, that's your opinion, and I respect that. At the end of the day, in the comment section, it helps with engagement. So listen, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to hate you. You guys can voice your opinions. You guys can say what it is that you believe and where it is that you stand. Let's make this normal. We can agree to disagree and be okay with that. That people don't shy away from standing on what is it that they believe in because they're afraid that somebody's going to come at their throat, but rather that we are able to live in a country where we understand we're all different. And we're all going to have different perspectives, and we're all going to have different values and beliefs, and that's okay, right? That's just a part of life. There's a reason why we all have a different fingerprint. Nobody has the same fingerprint. Why? Because we're all different. God created us all to be unique and different in His image, okay? That leads me now to another conversation our country continues to wrestle with, and that is the Iranian ceasefire, okay, or not. Ceasefire or not, because we're not in a ceasefire anymore. I really thought this was going to be the week. However, this week's attention shifted once again. Just days ago, many people were hopeful that a ceasefire might mark the beginning of a path towards peace. But yesterday, President Trump announced that in his view, the ceasefire is over. After renewed attacks and failed negotiations, he was signaling a return to active fighting in this war that we all want so desperately to be over. Once again, people quickly divided into opposing camps. Some argue that strength and military action are the only way to stop further aggression. But others believe diplomacy and restraint remain the best hope for preventing even greater loss of life. Those are both serious perspectives. But here's what I've been thinking about. What if peace is more than simply the absence of fighting? A ceasefire can silence weapons for a time, but it cannot by itself heal years of fear, mistrust, and conflict, which is where the worry is between Iran and the U.S. We may have a ceasefire right now, we may have peace right now, but what's going to happen in 3 or 5 years? You think they're just going to forget about it? No, they're not going to forget about it. Real peace requires more than agreements signed by governments. It requires leaders willing to choose wisdom over pride. It requires people willing to value human life even when deep disagreements remain. Every day, this conflict reminds us that behind every headline are families wondering if their loved ones will return home from deployment. Parents hoping that their children will be safe, communities longing for stability. It's easy to celebrate a ceasefire. It's much harder to build a peace that lasts. We don't want something temporary. We want something eternal. Now, I know that that's physically, spiritually, and verbally impossible. We're not going to have peace forever, but understand that we need to create something that lasts. At least more than a temporary ceasefire. We need something that lasts a long period of time. Personally, I really wish the United States would have never gone into war with Iran. That's just my personal opinion. We've lost soldiers, and I'm not in the White House, so I do not know the capacity of the information that was given to them that caused this attack onto Iran. I understand that they were afraid of their nuclear weapons and their nuclear facilities and this and this and that. But Iran is a ginormous country. They're not going to just forget that we went and bombed 40 of their top leaders. They're not going to forget about it. So I think that Trump maybe thought that this was going to be something short and quick and easy, and it's not. It's not. And honestly, after this week, I really don't see this coming to an end anytime soon, and it's unfortunate, right? And perhaps the greatest measure of strength isn't how quickly a nation can return to war, but it's how faithfully nations pursue a peace that can endure. Maybe that's something we all need more of, because we don't need temporary peace. We need long-lasting peace. And I'm going to continue to pray for our administration, our leaders, and Donald Trump as they continue to navigate through this while finding the road to peace. Okay? Now, the last thing I really want to go over, guys, is I really have been reflecting on America turning 250 years old. July 4th just passed. It was amazing. We had such an incredible time, both me and my family, and it just put me in a place of just deep, deep reflection. As I prepared for this episode, I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that America not only just celebrated 250 years, but just thinking about everything that our country has survived. The Revolution, Civil War, economic depression, world wars, the Civil Rights Movement, terrorist attacks, political division. Every generation believed they were living through one of the hardest chapters in American history. Yet somehow the nation continued to move forward. Why? Because ordinary people chose courage. They chose sacrifice. They chose service. That gives me hope. America has never been perfect, but America has always had people willing to make it better. The question isn't whether our country faces challenges. The question is whether we'll become the kind of people capable of meeting those challenges. History doesn't ask whether life was easy. History asks whether people had the character to endure and not give up. And that's my question to you. Do not give up on this nation. I know a lot of people have. They feel like their vote doesn't matter. They feel like their voice doesn't matter. And they just feel like it's become so chaotic and so toxic and just an all-out internal social media civil war. I mean, that's really what we're in between the media, social media, society, and culture. I mean, it's just without the weapons, it is a civil war that our country is facing. But let me remind you guys, I am one person and you are one person, but together, we the people, okay? We are the people. Yes, there's people in power. Yes, there's influencers. And yes, there's people that are making decisions. But I'm here to tell you, your voice matters, your life matters, your vote matters. And you as an American citizen deserve the right to have your voice heard inside of this nation and inside of this country. So speak on whatever it is that you believe and stand on it. Let's move forward together. Let's challenge the American people with a charge to move united and not divided, okay? I want to leave you with one thought before I leave you guys today. Every single week, we consume headlines. We scroll, we react, we move on. But maybe the most important question isn't what happened this week, but maybe it's who am I becoming because of what happened this week? Am I becoming more angry, less hopeful, more divided? Or am I becoming more patient, more courageous, more compassionate, more truthful, more willing to listen, and more importantly, more willing to lead? Who is willing to lead to make a change? That's the kind of person I want to become. And I hope that's the kind of community we're building here together. Thank you for spending your week with me. And remember this. In a world full of noise, this is a place for clarity. In a culture driven by outrage, this is a place for wisdom. We will pursue truth with conviction and treat people with dignity. And believe that character builds strong families, strong leaders, and strong nations. This isn't a place to attack one another. It's a place to think together. So tell me not who you disagreed with this week, but what principle or lesson challenged you the most? I love to hear your perspective in the comments. I love to hear your perspective on everything going on with the pretrial, with the Charlie Kirk assassination. I would love to hear your perspective on the ceasefire with Donald Trump, that now we are no longer in a ceasefire, but we are back into war with Iran. I want to hear what the American people have to say because your voice here matters. Now, Before you leave, go ahead and like and subscribe. By the way, guys, I will be leaving to Japan on Saturday. I will be speaking at a convention, and then I will be headed to Singapore for a very important meeting and a leadership retreat. So I will see you guys on the other side. God bless you. God bless America, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.